The town didn't have a name anyone bothered to remember. It sat somewhere in the northern Midwest, the kind of place maps reduce to a gray dot between highways, too small for traffic lights, too quiet for sirens. Winters lasted longer here. Summers felt muted. Even the wind seemed tired. At the edge of town stood the old factory. No sign, no fence, just a massive concrete structure slouched beside a cracked service road, its windows dark and uneven, like broken teeth. Vines crawled over its walls, thick and tangled, as if the building had been trying to pull itself back into the ground for years. People said it shut down in the late 90s. People also said no one really knew what it produced. Most days, fog rolled in from the nearby marshland and wrapped around the factory's base, hiding the lower floors. From a distance, it looked like the building was floating, cut off from the earth, existing on its own terms. That's where this story begins. My name is Daniel Carter. I was 26 when I came back. I didn't leave because I hated the place. I left because staying felt like slowly drowning in familiarity. My father worked odd jobs, construction, repair work, anything that paid cash. My mother taught third grade at the local elementary school, the same building she'd gone to as a kid. We lived in a narrow two-story house with peeling white paint and a porch that leaned just enough to make visitors uneasy. It wasn't a bad childhood, just quiet, too quiet. Every night the town settled into itself early. Stores closed by 6, streets emptied by 9. By 10, the only sound was the wind brushing against power lines and the distant hum of insects from the marsh. When I was a kid, my bedroom window faced the factory. I used to stare at it at night. Even back then, something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous, not scary, just aware, like it noticed when someone looked at it. My parents never talked about it. When I asked, my mother would change the subject. My father would say, "That place is done, leave it alone." So I did, until I left for college, until my parents passed within 2 years of each other, until the house felt too big, too empty, too full of echoes. I came back because I didn't know where else to go. The day I returned, the sky was low and heavy. Thick clouds pressed down on the town, turning everything gray-blue. The factory was still there, still watching, still silent. As I unlocked the front door of my childhood home, a strange thought crossed my mind, one I hadn't had in years. It feels like I was expected. I shook it off. Grief does that to you, makes familiar places feel strange, makes memories play tricks. Inside, the house smelled exactly the same. Dust, old wood, and something faintly metallic. Every floorboard creaked in the same spots. Every room felt frozen in time, like my parents had just stepped out and would be back any minute. That night, as I lay in bed, the wind picked up. And somewhere, far off beyond the trees, something echoed. Not a sound exactly, more like a pressure, a presence pressing gently against the edge of my awareness. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself it was just the town settling around me again. Outside my window, the factory stood in the darkness. And for the first time since childhood, I had the overwhelming feeling that it wasn't abandoned at all. I didn't sleep much that first night, not because of nightmares. There were none. It was worse than that. Every time I drifted close to sleep, my body would jolt awake, like it had sensed something just before my mind could catch it. The room stayed the same. Pale moonlight on the walls, the shadow of the window frame stretched across the floor, the low hum of the old refrigerator downstairs. But the feeling didn't go away. It felt like being watched without eyes. Sometime after midnight, the wind died completely. The sudden silence was so sharp it felt physical, like pressure in my ears. No insects, no rustling trees, just stillness. Then came a sound. Not loud, not sudden. A low, steady thrum, far away, almost too distant to be real. It reminded me of heavy machinery idling, the kind you feel more than hear. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, then faded. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, heart slow but uneasy. The factory, I thought. Just old metal shifting, temperature change. That explanation didn't comfort me, but I accepted it anyway. Morning came late. Fog pressed against the windows like damp breath, muting the sunlight. When I stepped outside, the air felt thick, heavy with the smell of wet earth and rust. The town looked unchanged. Same diner, same gas station, same half-empty streets. But the people looked at me differently. At the grocery store, an older woman at the register paused when she saw my name on the credit card. "Carter, you're back." Not welcome back, just back. A man near the door stopped talking when I passed. Another stared a little too long, his expression unreadable. Not hostile, not friendly, expectant, like they knew something I didn't. I asked around about the factory, casually, carefully. Most people shrugged it off. "Place is dead. Been that way forever. Not safe. Best stay away." But no one explained why their voices dropped when they said it. That afternoon, I went through my parents' things. Old photo albums, tax papers, yellowed litters, everything normal, until I found a small box tucked behind a loose floorboard in the hallway closet. Inside were newspaper clippings, all from different years, all about the factory. Unexplained shutdown, missing equipment, workers relocated, investigation inconclusive. No accidents, no deaths, yet every article carried the same undertone: confusion, abrupt endings, questions left unanswered. At the bottom of the box was something stranger: a cassette tape. No label, just a strip of masking tape with one word written in my father's handwriting: waiting. My mouth went dry. I didn't remember this. I was sure I would have. That evening, the wind rolled in thicker than before. From the porch, the factory barely visible, just a darker shape in the gray. And then, for the first time since I returned, something new happened. A light flickered inside the factory. Just once, brief, dim, then gone. I stood frozen, heart hammering, telling myself it was reflection, debris, imagination. But deep down, something old stirred inside me, something I remembered from childhood. That feeling I used to have at night staring out my bedroom window. The feeling that the factory wasn't empty, that it had been waiting. Didn't play the tape right away. I wish I could say it was because I was being careful, because I was smart. The truth is simpler. I was afraid that once I listened to it, something would change, and I wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. So I left it on the kitchen table, right where I could see it, like an accusation. That night, the town felt closer. The fog pressed in tight against the house, swallowing the streetlights until they were nothing but dull halos. I locked the doors without really thinking about it, then checked them again 10 minutes later. Old habits, or instincts waking up. I heated leftover soup and ate standing up, listening to the quiet. That's when I noticed something odd. The factory wasn't making noise anymore. No distant hum, no metallic settling, nothing. It should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like the moment right before someone speaks your name from behind you. Growing up, my father had rules. Most of them were normal: be home before dark, don't talk back, help your mother, but a few had always stood out. Don't go near the factory. Don't take shortcuts through the marsh. If you hear something at night, don't answer it. I used to think those were just small-town superstitions, the kind parents invent to keep kids from getting hurt. Now, sitting alone in that quiet house, I wondered who those rules were really for. I finally played the tape at 11:47 p.m. The cassette player whined as it came to life, the sound too loud in the stillness. For a few seconds, there was nothing but static. Then, my father's voice, low, tired, older than I remembered. "Recording this in case I don't get another chance," he said. I stopped breathing. I don't know how long they've been aware of me, or if they always were. A pause, the faint echo of a large space around him. But I know now, the factory never shut down. There was a sound in the background, not voices, movement, slow, rhythmic. "I think it needs people," my father continued. "Not bodies, not exactly. Attention, familiarity, routine." Another pause. "That's why it stayed open so long. That's why they didn't demolish it." My hands were shaking. "If you're hearing this, Daniel, then you came back. I hoped you wouldn't." His voice cracked just slightly. "It recognizes families. It remembers patterns." The tape clicked. Silence. I sat there long after it ended, staring at my reflection in the dark window. Outside, the fog shifted, and for the first time, I saw something I couldn't explain. Lights, faint, uneven, glowing inside the factory. Not all at once, one floor at a time, like something waking up, carefully. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. "You're home." I didn't reply. I couldn't, because deep down, beneath the fear and confusion, something else was rising. Recognition. The same feeling I used to get as a child staring out at the factory late at night, like it had always known I would return. I didn't leave the house the next morning, not because I was scared to step outside, but because I felt like the moment I did, something would notice. The text was still on my phone. "You're home." No follow-up, no number I could trace, just those two words sitting there like they'd always been meant for me. I made coffee I didn't drink and stood at the kitchen window, watching the fog thin out slowly. The town came back into view piece by piece. The empty road, the leaning street sign, the bare trees. And the factory. It looked different in daylight. Not newer, not more alive. Just clearer. Like seeing an old scar after forgetting it was there. Around noon, someone knocked on the door. 3 slow knocks. Careful. Patient. When I opened it, a man stood on the porch I didn't recognize. Late 50s, maybe older. Work jacket, grease under his fingernails. His eyes flicked past me, into the house, like he was checking something off a list. "Daniel Carter?" he said. Not a question. "Yes." He nodded once. "I'm Henry. I used to work with your dad." That alone was enough to let him in. We sat at the kitchen table. He didn't touch the coffee I poured him, didn't even look at it. "You shouldn't have come back," he said finally. I almost laughed. That seems to be a popular opinion. Henry didn't smile. "Your father tried to keep you away. Most of us did. Families that stayed too long, well..." He stopped himself, cleared his throat. "The factory doesn't like sudden change." My chest tightened. What does that mean?
"It means," he said carefully, "it prefers people who already belong to it." I told him about the tape. He went pale. "So he recorded it," Henry murmured. I wondered. Why didn't anyone say anything? All these years, why pretend it's just an abandoned building? Because pretending works. As long as enough people believe it's empty, it sleeps. That word again. Sleeps. Before I could ask more, Henry stood. "If the lights come on again tonight, don't go near it, and whatever you hear, don't answer back." Then he hesitated at the door. "It remembers your father," he added quietly. "That's not a good thing." That evening, the town felt wrong. Too quiet, even for this place. No cars passed, no porch lights came on, curtains were drawn tight, like the whole town had agreed to look away at the same time. I stood at my bedroom window just after sunset. The factory lights flickered on, not randomly, deliberately. One floor, then the next, then the next, like a signal. My phone buzzed again. Same number. "We kept your room ready." That's when I realized something terrifying. The factory wasn't waking up. It had already been awake. It had just been waiting for me to notice.
I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, at least not entirely. It was curiosity, the kind that grips your chest and whispers, just one step closer, just one glance. By 11:30 p.m., I was out the door. The air was colder than I remembered, sharp against my face, carrying the faint smell of damp concrete and rust. Fog wrapped around the town like thick wool, muffling the streets and swallowing the light from my flashlight. The factory loomed ahead, bigger than memory, darker than my imagination. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but every memory of my father, every word on that tape, every warning from Henry, the pull was stronger. I reached the perimeter. Broken windows stared back like empty eye sockets. The front doors were chained, rusted shut, but I noticed something. The lock hadn't been touched in years. Somehow, the doors swung open. I didn't push them. They moved on their own. Inside, the air was heavy, thick. Every step I took echoed, swallowed immediately by the vast, empty halls. My flashlight flickered, then steadied, illuminating walls scarred with rust and peeling paint. Machinery stood still, frozen mid-motion, yet I could feel the vibration under my feet, like the building itself was breathing. Then I saw them. Not people, not exactly. Shadows, shapes moving in the corners of my vision, just beyond clarity, just outside definition. They didn't speak, didn't run. They watched. And I felt their recognition, a slow, insidious certainty that they had been expecting me all along, that they had been waiting and counting. I wanted to leave. I tried. My legs moved toward the exit, but the hall stretched. It didn't end. Every step I took seemed to bring me back to the same place. The shadows were closer now, still silent, still patient, still watching. Then I heard a whisper. Not my father, not Henry. Something older, colder. "Daniel." I froze. It wasn't a voice. It was the building itself. The factory knew my name. It knew I was here. It had been waiting, and now it wasn't going to let me go. The shadows moved faster now, not chasing me, just shifting around the edges, circling, waiting. My flashlight flickered again, and in that brief darkness, I thought I saw the shapes step closer. I tried to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. The air felt thicker, like it had weight. Every breath I took made a faint metallic taste fill my mouth. Then I noticed the walls. They weren't walls at all, at least not entirely. Something inside the concrete seemed alive. A subtle pulse ran through it, vibrating under my hands when I touched the cold surface. And I realized the factory was aware, watching, feeling, responding. I stumbled deeper into the building, drawn by a flickering light above. The shadows didn't move out of my way. They made room, like guides leading me. And there it was, a control room, old, dusty, filled with levers, dials, and monitors, some still blinking, showing static. On the desk was a notebook, my father's handwriting. It feeds on attention, routine, familiarity. The building, it remembers. Don't let it touch you. A whisper drifted from the monitors, faint but unmistakable. We remember you, Daniel. Panic hit me. My legs moved without me thinking, carrying me toward the exit, but the doors slammed shut before I could reach them. The building wasn't just alive, it was aware. Then the whispers grew louder. Shapes coalesced into forms, workers from old photographs, faceless but familiar, moving silently along the walls. They weren't real, not fully, but they were, and they were waiting. I realized the factory didn't want to harm me, not exactly. It wanted me to stay, to be noticed, to be remembered, to be part of it. I ran. Outside, the fog had thickened. The town seemed gone. No street, no lights, no sounds, just the factory, looming, watching. My phone buzzed one last time. Welcome home, Daniel. I didn't answer. I didn't run farther. I just stood there, knowing some part of me had already crossed the line. And as the fog wrapped around me, the faint sound of machinery echoed from inside the factory. Not threatening, not violent, patient, waiting. It had been waiting, and I had finally returned.